Jeff, it's great to have you. If you don't mind just jumping in and introducing yourself and then go through the presentation, I think if we can do that for about 15 or so minutes and then Q&A thereafter usually takes us to a quarter to the top of the hour when we will finish things up.
Cool. Thanks everyone for having me here. Appreciate it. My name is Jeff Sesol. I am the CEO and founder of a company called Pull the Shoot. Pull the Shoot is an interesting name where people always say, how did you come up with that name? And I always tell people there's a few important birthdays in your life. When you're 16, you can drive. When you're 21, you're legal. When you're 40, statistically, your life is half over. So when my 40th birthday came up, I looked in the mirror and said, what do I want to do while I still can? That's on my bucket list. And so I was skydiving. So I don't know if you've ever done that before, but you go up in a plane, you go 14,000 feet up, you jump out of a perfectly good plane, as everyone always says. Why would you ever do that? But anyway, as you're going down, you're falling at 120 miles an hour. The first thing you notice is that it's hard to breathe. The next thing you notice is one little movement of your hands and you start to spin a little bit. Everything's happening so fast, you can't see where you're at, you can't see. But when I got to 5,500 feet, I pulled the chute. And suddenly I could breathe again. I was in control. I could see where I was at, and I could see where I wanted to go. And so I always affiliated that with what it's like being in business, and sometimes even in our personal life. Sometimes everything's moving so fast that we need to pull the chute, especially in your business world. And just take a moment to take a breath and feel in control and see where you're at and see where you want to go. So that's what Pull the Chute's all about. We're a leadership, a business and a executive coaching firm out of Nashville, Tennessee. So my original roots are from Chicago, but as I was telling Taylor, I got tired of the weather and I got tired of the taxes, and Tennessee's home now, so it's wonderful. I love it a lot. Been here over 7 years. So anyway, from a background real quick, I'm 30 plus years entrepreneurial. I've done so many things. I have a friend that always says, what hasn't Jeff done? Which is kind of the fun game to play, but it's just, it allows me to gain the experiences and the knowledge that I've gained over all the years, and allows me to talk to you guys a little bit. When I left Chicago, I moved to the Panhandle of Florida for 3 years, and I did some business brokering, and I still work with companies that do that. So to be able to talk to you about, how to position your company for acquisition is a topic that I'm very familiar with, and I'm excited to be able to talk about that today. What I want to kind of do is do almost a case study, because we recently had a company that we helped out through this very process of trying to get them acquired, and it worked out very well. And so a couple of things that we like to do, obviously we go in there and we understand their financials and we do an assessment of what they're worth today. And then we say, okay, how can we maximize that number and get the best value when you're ready to sell? And so in this particular case, one of the things that we did is we went in there and they had really no organization in place. And there's several pieces that go along with organization, right? The first piece is the org chart itself. So this is a company that had about 20 people, and so not overly huge, but nice size. They were doing fairly well, but they had no organization. And so when we went in there, it was like a bunch of little busy bees. Everyone could do everything. And so the struggle with that is that if someone's coming in to buy you, that's confusing because they want structure, and structure says you're organized. And so that's a big thing. So what we did, the first thing we did was we created an org chart, and we created, obviously beside the executive team, we created managers roles. And then we had people that worked under them. And that allowed them to build this, structure of how the business should work and who should report to who, and what your responsibilities were. Because if everybody does everything and then someone leaves, how do you teach that to everyone else? And so it was one of the interesting pieces that we did. It took a little bit to get them to do that. Some of the things that we're talking about here, people hate change. And so, we've got to go slow sometimes with that kind of stuff. But in the end, it worked out fairly well. People really started to get the hang of it, and it really built this wonderful foundation of things. So, I believe that, building, if you have an organization, even if you only have, 10 or anywhere from probably, 10 to, 50 people, it's good to have organizational structure in place so everyone really knows and their jobs are defined. And that's an important factor when someone's coming in to buy you, because again, they don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. They don't want to have to spend time figuring out what the organizational structure is or what it should be. They want to know that you have it figured out. And what happens is if they have to come in and do their own thing, that's going to drive the value down, not up. But if you've got the structure in place, that'll actually help the value to be increased. And then the next thing we did was we kind of figured out what the reporting structure was. What does that look like? Both from, again, who reports to who, and what is the overall business reporting aspect of things? Like, how many leads from a sales standpoint, how many leads are in the pipeline? How many sales have we made? What's the revenue looking like for the month based on those sales? Hey, we got a marketing campaign that we're putting out there. Here's how much we spend. Here was the return on investment for things. And so those were things that didn't exist with this company at all. They had no reporting, so that from a standpoint of coming in and understanding how sales worked and how, what the overall percentage of leads to sales was, they had no clue. And so being able to put that in play for them made a huge difference, so that they were understanding exactly what the process was. And again, from a buyer standpoint, it helps you look organized, and they feel better about what you've done and where you're at within the whole process. The next thing that's important with all that, and Patrick, you could appreciate this, we were just talking about, is the financial perception. Where is the company financially, from an accounting standpoint, from a bookkeeping standpoint? You want it to be as live as possible. And what do I mean about being as live as possible? Well, normally when we have a business, right, at the end of the month, we hand all our stuff over to the accountant and we let him do the reports and give us the reports, right? Well, now you're 6 to 8 weeks out from where actually you think you might want to know things. Whereas if you're live, it's daily. So if you can enter your expenses on a daily basis, if you can enter your revenues on a daily basis, if you can put your, what your cash position is on a daily basis, you now know where things stand, and so you can react better on things and understand where things are going. If you do it at the end of the month every time, again, it takes time to get all that. So with this particular company, when we went in there, they had bills that were sitting on the desk and sitting in drawers. They'd been sitting there for a week, and no one entered them in the system. So as the executives of the company, they had no clue what was coming down the pipeline, right? All of a sudden someone go, oh yeah, I got to enter all those expenses. And they all of a sudden everyone goes, whoa, where did all that come from, right? And how did we not know that those expenses were all coming in? So we converted them to more of a live as possible environment. And it has changed the way that they look at everything that they do now. And the great part about that is, if you think about from someone coming in to purchase the business or acquire the business, the fact that they understand on a daily basis where their business is at is just takes that business to a whole other level, where people are going to go, oh my gosh, these guys really have their act together. They know exactly where things are at. And I believe the numbers now as I'm coming in to buy it, right? Because it's showing me on a daily basis where things are at. And so it's much easier when they do their due diligence to understand, yes, those are true numbers. No one's fudging those numbers in a sense, because that is something that does happen when people try to sell their businesses. They have a tendency to all of a sudden cut a bunch of expenses to make the revenue look better. And the problem is that's not consistent with how the business has been running. And so when they do their due diligence, they're going to figure that out, and they're going to take that into account. And then, of course, the offer for the business will become lower, not higher. So little things like that we really have to pay attention to when it comes to the financials is, again, making sure that we've reported everything on a daily basis to the best of your ability. So I think that's the third thing that's important. This next piece that's, I believe, is important. It sounds like a small thing, but it's really not. And that is, what's the physical appearance of the business? When I walk in, if I see boxes everywhere, if I see papers a mess, if I see stains on the carpet, that tells me a lot for my first impression, right? That means in my head, I'm like, if this is the way they work in this environment, then that means their books are going to be a mess. And that means that they don't ever know where their sales are coming from. And they don't have any structure built in. They don't, it just gives that really tough first impression. Again, from the case study that I'm sharing with you, that was exactly the problem. We walked in and they had boxes stacked everywhere. The kitchen was always a mess where, no one was kind of cleaning up after that. They literally had stains on the carpet. So we, made them kind of clean that all up. We made them get a storage unit for all the boxes, get that all out. People on their desk, clean up your desk at the end of the day. Don't just leave it a mess. Here was the really cool part about when that happened. People started feeling really good about coming into office or coming into work and coming into the office because the office felt good. And so instead of it being a mess and feeling like it was, in a disarray all the time, it was organized, it was structured. And so the employees actually started to respond to that in a very positive way. And when you get the employees responding that in a positive way, then they're going to start doing their job better. And so all of a sudden things started happening that didn't happen before. It's always that whole piece, when COVID hit and we were consulting for companies and people wanted to come to work in their pajamas, we would say, no, put on a shirt, put on a pair of pants, come to work like you're going to the office because you're going to feel better about who you are. Because sometimes they get into this rut where they weren't getting things done. And that's because they weren't feeling good about themselves. And so we were teaching them to feel good about who you are as the person, and you're going to do your job better. And usually that worked for people. I mean, there's days when you can leave your pajamas on, big deal. But for the most part, if you can start to do that, you're going to feel better. And so by changing that physical appearance of your office, it's really going to make a huge difference for the buyer. Again, when they walk in, they're going to see that and they're going to set a different perspective of how you're running your business right from the very beginning. And again, all these are points that we're trying to bring up that are going to help the value of your business increase. And there's a lot of other things. Obviously, I'm a little bit limited on time, so I'm trying to hit some of the high points. But these are things that you can start to do today that are really going to make a big difference. And it takes time. I want to kind of emphasize this. Don't make the changes, don't just say, this is how we're going to start doing things. Do small little changes and allow yourself to do that and allow it to take time. I mean, it took this company 9 months to get to a place where they felt they were starting to get ready to feel good about maybe being acquired. They felt good about their environment. They felt good about their reporting, about their org chart, about their finances, and everything just started to feel right. I always say, 2% change can create compound results if we do it in small little increments, because then people don't realize change is occurring. They just adapt to it pretty easily and pretty quickly. One of the other things that we started to do is probably 6 months in, we start working with the sales team. And we said, what else can we do to drive additional revenues? Now, again, we don't want to lower expenses because that's, when they do their due diligence, they're going to see that. What we want to do is try and increase revenue. And so we had them go back and upsell old clients. They weren't doing that. And then we found another area where they could actually go out to existing clients and sell them a new service. And that started driving more revenue. Again, the goal here is to increase the value of what it is that the person buying the business feels that your value is worth. And by having all these pieces in place, it's really going to change the overall value and get you the top dollar of things that you should be, that you're looking for when you do this. The other thing I want to let everyone realize too is, again, not only does it take time to make sure your company's ready to sell, but then be prepared for it to take time to find the right buyer. In this case, this company, again, the employees are staying, the owner eventually is leaving when they find the right buyer. But it's an important thing to find the right buyer so that you, as the owner, feel comfortable that your employees are going to be taken care of. Right? You don't want people to leave in a mass exit because then that drives the value down. One more time, that's an important fact to keep in place. So if we can find the right buyer that has some of the similar cultural pieces that you have in your business, even though you've maybe changed some of that stuff, but that you believe would drive the business on to be even more profitable than you had it. Those are all important factors because you want to keep those employees in place as much as possible. The good part is that if you've set up your org chart, you set up your job descriptions, if someone does leave, again, much easier to replace them. And the buyer is going to realize that as they go through and kind of understand that. So finding that right buyer is key. Again, it could take up to a year. In this case, it did. But then we found the right buyer for them and it made a big difference. The other thing to remember is if you're the owner, just because you sell the business doesn't mean you're going to step out day one. Usually almost always, I mean, one or two cases I think we've had where we sold a business and the buyer was able to leave immediately. But most kind of the owner stays there for probably a year. Goes through transition, works with the people acquiring the business to make sure they understand all the pieces and all the places where everything's at, how everything gets done. And then eventually you step out after a year. But then you got another problem. And that is now you've transitioned into what do you do with the rest of your life? And so for me as a leadership business and an executive coach, I do more of the executive coaching here where it's almost like a life coach to a certain degree because they're trying to figure out what they want to do next. Maybe they're young enough where they want to have another business. Maybe they're older and they don't think they want to have another business, but you spend the first 6 months traveling and doing whatever you wanted to do. And then you get bored all of a sudden. You're like, okay, so now what? What am I going to do? And so I always recommend anyone selling their business after you've gotten out of it to, get a coach, get a life coach, get someone that's going to help you figure out what your next steps are, because it is a process. You've built this business, you spent your whole career building this business, and now you look in the mirror and you say, now what? Right. And so that becomes a thing that you got to figure out. So anyway, these are a few things that I think as we talk through, I wanted to give you things that you could start thinking about today and apply today. So again, as a recap real quick, make sure you're organized from an organizational standpoint, an org chart. Make sure that there's a reporting structure in place so that you can understand where things are coming from, how they're happening, what the forecasts are, and how to report up to people as well. Making sure that your financials are in a place. And again, we try to say keep it as live as possible because it's going to make a big difference for you. You're making sure that your property, your office itself looks good and presentable. To me, it's like, when you have people coming over and you're, to visit and you clean up your house so that it looks presentable, that's the way the office should always be. I always like to reference those two. And then just be patient, make sure you don't force things. One of the things I've learned over 30 plus years of being entrepreneurial is if I would have just waited a couple of days or maybe a week, I probably would have solved the problem or gotten a better offer because I pushed it. There were times when I made things happen in an improper amount of time and I didn't get the best result out of that. So just be patient when you go through everything. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope that was informative. I am open for questions.
Thanks, Jeff. That's great. You touched on a lot of things. I put a bunch of questions in the chat, but I would love to have everybody else either add your questions in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself as you do that, either adding in the chat or otherwise. Jeff, do you mind just answering some of those questions that I put in the chat? I'll read you the first one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just wondering what's some of the tools or software you use to track or manage all of these activities that you were discussing?
So there's a couple different things. When it comes to reporting, sales, and all that stuff, I'm a big HubSpot user. So that's the CRM that we like to use. It works very well. I love the way that it follows through, and then the reporting aspect is to me, really amazing. People like to use Salesforce. It's, unless you're a bigger corporation, we're talking small to medium-sized companies now. Bigger corporations like to use Salesforce. I'm not as much of a fan just because it's almost like so complicated you can't figure it out sometimes. So that's one of the tools I like to use there. And then, when you're trying to go through this process, in my mind, make sure that you've kind of laid out what the plan is and when you're going to knock certain things off and set kind of dates to make things happen. So, structurally, we go through a whole planning piece that we use an Excel spreadsheet with, hey, here's what we want to have done by this date, here's what we want to have done by this date, and who's responsible for it, and kind of get that put through with that. So as far as other softwares, I mean, from a financial standpoint, it just depends where you're at. QuickBooks obviously is the easiest one for small to medium-sized companies that can give you that real-time data that you need as well. So let's see, what other questions do we have here? I'm trying to read through.
When you're getting ready to sell a company, what is the best way to value those best practices that you're talking about? Like when a buyer comes in, how do you go about having a discussion or pointing to those best practices such that they will increase the value of your company?
So there's two things. One is someone put skeletons in the closet kind of thing. Just be as open and honest and authentic with all that stuff as possible, so that they feel like you're giving them true numbers. But I've always felt strongly about third party involvement. So one of my good friends is a business broker still, and his ability to come in and value the company when you first ask the question, and to value the company, after all these changes have been made, gives a third party result. So it's not you trying to assess what the value of it should be. It's a third party assessing it. And that gives a ton more value to the piece that's on the table than for the overall value of the company. Skeletons in the
And
closet.
have you found business brokers? Have you found business brokers to do that as a third party, or are there other groups that you've used?
Business brokers for the most part, just because they understand the industry, and so they can give true values. I mean, we can get a third party consultant in there to value it, but unless they understand, the business brokerage environment, and they understand what vertical you're in and what other companies are valued at, and they have access to all that information, it's going to give you the best result that you're looking for.
Awesome. Michael, you added something here in the chat. I don't want to just keep going through my questions if other people have comments. So do you mind just coming off mute and giving some context as to what you were adding there, Michael?
Yeah. So we've been trying to help people, like guide people on basically seeking to commercialize and exit. So this is really pertinent and important. I really appreciate you being here, Jeff. So my question was something that I've usually tried to preach, and maybe this is also from like a analytics background, is trying to like gear your company or your product or the technology you're trying to license, trying to actually present it and market it in a way that fits the profile of the acquirer's portfolio. So if I know that there's a type of company or a type of technology that these specific companies look for, it's essentially trying to like make my product or company fit their mold so that they're more enticed to acquire. And I wanted to know if you one, agree with that, or if you see any pitfalls in that view, if you have actions around that. How early in the process do you see things like that? I just want to get your take on that approach.
Sure. Well, it is an approach. I'll say that it's a strategy that when you start the company, or at some point in the company when you realize you want to sell it, that you want to shift to. I see a lot of pitfalls there, though, and that is, again, I'm a big advocate of finding the right buyer because I have employees. Right. And so if you're gearing yourself to a particular company because you're looking for that company to buy you, now you're stuck with the culture that they have. So I would almost do the research about how are they to work with before you even get into it. Because again, the worst thing that could happen is you sell it to these guys and then all your employees leave. Right. And then, of course, usually when you sell it, it's based on not just what it's worth today. It's like, it goes out 5-year payment kind of thing, right? Because they want to make sure that it stays in business and that you're still part of it. So, it might be a multi-million-dollar deal, but in 5 years, if it's worth nothing, then you get nothing. So a lot of little scary things in there from a strategy standpoint that you got to be careful of, in my opinion. Hope that answered your question.
Yep.
Yeah. Anybody else have questions?
Jeff, other than business brokers, where do you suggest finding buyers that are fit the profile that you're describing, like good buyers?
Sure. So, and again, you don't always have to use business brokers. One of my good friends down in Oklahoma, she had a cell tower business. She had it for 28 years. Her values are very Christian based. And so she wanted someone that would buy her company that had the same values. And so she did her own scouting. She looked at, there's, decent number of cell tower, providers in her industry, in her vertical. And so she just started going after and looking at them and understanding who they were, looking at their values, looking at their missions, and then seeing what their opportunities were to maybe come in and acquire her. And she actually found one all the way in Ohio that fit exactly. And it was great because she sold it. She stayed for a year, like I said, which is the norm. She helped transition her employees from her leading it to the new company leading it, and worked very closely with them. but she did a lot of the legwork herself because she, after 20 years, knew it was time. But again, in her mind, she was never going to sell unless it was the right buyer. And so she, she obviously had assistant helper to do that stuff, but that's one of the ways that we can do that, is just kind of do some research in other companies in that vertical. And you make a call and say, hey, I'm looking to sell. Are you interested? And then you start talking about what their values and their culture is.
Taylor, can I ask a follow-up question on that? So Jeff, as one who is predominantly advising the sell side, I guess, if you will, although you're not a broker, do you feel like a lot of times you can also kind of be the connector for that between the buy side and the sell side? Because I mean, you obviously, people reach out to you and know that you know interested parties. And so I'm wondering, and I guess kind of an extension to that question, how often has it been to where you're working with a seller and you're like, oh my gosh, I know so-and-so who's interested in this. Let me connect you to.
Yeah, I've actually done that twice in my career, and it's worked out both times, thank God. Because that's the scary part, by the way, right? So you can be the connector, and sometimes it goes sour or goes south, and then all of a sudden you're the bad guy because you connected them, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always very careful about who I connect, and then I stay involved a little bit, to be honest, because I want to make sure that it stays positive through the process. Because it's my name out there that I'm putting out there when I'm connecting them. And the worst thing I could do is connect two people and it goes bad. And then everyone's talking bad. It's like, oh, I don't want that. So, but yeah, I've done that a lot. I've connected people just in general, but because I feel like from what I do a lot of public speaking. I'm an author, I'm out all the time. I always say to people, either I know somebody or I have a really good friend here in the Nashville area. She knows a lot of people. I always say, I got a girl. And if Tracy, recommends somebody, again, her and I are the same belief, making sure that we know the people. We just don't meet someone and then recommend them.
Right.
We know that person and feel good about recommending them. So yeah.
People you vetted out before. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's
I've been in that situation. It's good.
Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you. So I have a meeting upcoming with an individual who has recently sold a company in the ed tech space that is similar to ours, but they're not a competitor. And so I'm meeting with him next week. I'm curious, as I am learning through the process of what an exit can look like. We're also going through a raise right now. I'm wondering if there are any questions that you would think of asking in that type of a meeting. It's just an informational conversation, meet and greet.
Overall, I'd like to understand if he just sold his business, what his vision was when he started and where was it when it ended. You'd like to get to know how he handles, change and how he handles when certain issues come up. It's an important aspect, right? So are you looking for him to be an investor or to be part of it?
Not necessarily. I think I'm looking for a little bit more understanding of our space in ed tech and what that looks like as we're, building, growing, and eventually exiting our business.
Yeah, then for me, I try to, I always spend the first 15, 20 minutes getting to know him a little bit, tell me your story kind of stuff, mm-hmm. Right? And then by being a good listener, pick up on a couple small things that he said and dig a little deeper into those areas. And when you do that, it'll give you a good insight as to what type of person he is. And if he can open things up for you in a way that helps you understand how he did what he did.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Who else? I love
Jeff. We're almost at time here. If anybody has one more question, that would be great. Anyone want to come off mute? Just checking the chat here again. Then last question, Jeff. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making as they're preparing to sell their company, other than not knowing their numbers?
The biggest one that we always face is that the owner can't get out of their own way. They feel like they have all the answers and it's their way or the highway, instead of embracing their people, allowing the people to help grow the business. And because when the owner steps away, it's all about the people then, right? And so they have a tendency to just not want to get out of their own way. And I spend 6 months trying to make that happen. It's because they're so used to always being, no, I have to know all the answers. I have to call the shots. And the reality is we live in this wonderful new world where you don't have to have all the answers and you don't have to call the shots. You can say to someone, here's what I was thinking. What do you think? Right. And as long as you give them that environment where they feel good about opening up and saying what they really think, then it's going to make a big difference. But if business owners can get out of their own way and allow the business to thrive, then it'll make a big difference.
That's great counsel, Jeff. Really appreciate you being here. What if people have more questions or would like to chat with you? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Sure. So my website is pullthechute.net, and that's parachute, so it's CHUTE. Excuse me. My email is jeff@pullthechute.net. And you can also go to jeffsesol.com as well and kind of check out some of the stuff there. Or been a lot of fun things have been happening with Outstanding Leaderships Award. I just got inducted into the Who's Who in America group, so that was kind of fun. There's been so many fun things that we've been able to do over the years, and so I love to counsel people. I love to just have conversations. So if anybody wants to set up a call, you can go to calendly.com/pullthechute and set up a call there, and that'd be great.
Awesome. Jeff, thanks so much for your time. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll see you all back here next week. Same bat time, same bat place. So thanks for coming, and we'll see you all later. Jeff, thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.